What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining the show. Steve has been burning the midnight oil with these WBC episodes. Got to give him a lot of credit there. Not me. I'm a baby. I got to get to bed. But we are here actually to pivot a little bit back to our division previews. So excited to get back into it. As I believe Steve just said off air to me, what'd you say, 9 days away from Netflix opening night?
Yeah, 9 days away, the 25th on Netflix, behind the big, beautiful paywall that is those black and red letters. But either way, baseball will be upon us. Warmer weather, hopefully. It's raining like crazy in the Northeast. Evan and I were just discussing how the rain was almost like Wizard of Oz-like, where you were blowing away trying to bring recycling out, right?
Yeah, and I'm probably going to wake up to recycles just like all over the street. Like, I don't even know if I should have put them out there, but yeah, I don't know. And just very quick before I forget, it's on my mind. Shout out to our friends in Spain. First time we ever charted in Spain, and not just charted. And this is mostly thanks to Steve here for, again, coming on here almost every night the last 5 days or so with WBC reactions. Number 7 in the country of Spain on the top 250 Apple podcast for the world of baseball. So pretty cool there. Hopefully, if you're tuning back in because you like what you heard, hopefully I don't make you tune back out now that I'm back here.
Buenos noches, Spain. I'm happy to be here talking all things WBC. As far as that, we're watching right now. We're recording Italy, Venezuela in the bottom of the 5th right now. It's 2-1 Italy. So I'll be giving you guys just a wrap up for on Tuesday night for U.S. versus either Venezuela or Italy, and we say goodbye to the WBC. It's been an electric tournament. I'll give you the platform for just a sec if you wanted to say what you thought about the games. I know you've been watching closely.
Yeah, no, I've been watching every single game out there. I mean, last night, here's the thing that stands out just overall in the tournament is so many players coming out and basically saying, and analysts and people that are at the games, like, the atmosphere is nothing like they've ever seen before. To have Aaron Judge come out and say, like, this is a crazier atmosphere than when I was in the World Series, Yankees, Dodgers in the Bronx, like, what? That's like a big thing to say. Julio Rodriguez, like a few days back, was saying it'd be a bigger deal for him to win this than it would be to win the World Series. Like, there have been some crazy eye-opening quotes, and we'll see where this goes next. I know people are still talking about what is the proper timing for the World Baseball Classic, so I think this is going to start to evolve because clearly it has taken on a kind of a life of its own. It was important to a lot of people, but it is kind of just gone to another level. But as far as that game last night, I'm in the same boat as everybody else. I tweeted out that, listen, like you said, the DR had plenty of opportunities to come through and take the lead earlier in the game. So I don't love hearing the complaining from my guy Juan Soto and Perdomo. They both have gripes as far as those awful strike calls. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to say that those were correct calls, but it just seemed like a giant poster or a giant advertisement for ABS. Like, I don't know. I went to physical therapy earlier, and one of the guys there was saying that the reason they didn't do ABS is because I guess they have to take like measurements for all these different players to have their strike zones. And obviously, you got to, my physical therapist was actually like, well, but they have all these things ready for the MLB season. You got to remember, not all these guys are Major League Baseball players. So I'm not 100% sure if that's the actual reason, but it's interesting. And obviously, I think we can all expect ABS to be a part of the next World Baseball Classic.
Well, they got 3 years now to figure it out and measure some guys up. But that seems, I guess, to me, because one hand doesn't speak to the other. Just because the World Baseball Classic and Major League Baseball have overlap with some of the personnel doesn't mean that they have sort of the same guidelines. And we will see that probably because, again, like you said, walking billboard for what we're going to be seeing on opening day, as you mentioned, full circle on the 25th with ABS making its debut. Not only baseball, but we're going to get ABS in action. To be awesome. But we're here live discussing our division preview. So if you guys have missed it, we did the NL and the AL West a couple days ago. So go back in the archives and check that out. But we're here to talk the NL Central tonight. We'll be dropping the AL Central later today, talking about the divisions and trying to get these out here so you guys understand what's going on. And the NL Central, to me, Devin, is like a fascinating division. Every single year, we look at this division and we're waiting for a team to grab it, hold it, and go on a run with it. But this is one of those divisions that always feels like it's up for grabs in a good way, in a lot of ways. And there's a little bit of a flavor to this division that's unlike other years. And it might be because the Pirates are spending a little bit of money and making some moves. Also, the Reds coming off a playoff berth. So there's a little bit of a different flavor going into 2026 in the NL Central.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's you say no team has a stranglehold, but it does feel like recent history the Brewers have just figured it out. I know last year in the first year of our show, the first year of our division previews, I think both of us, I know maybe I shouldn't speak for you, but I think I was out on the Brewers, and I think the exact or similar thing I said was, how many of these stars can you let walk out the door before you start feeling the effects? And I was proven very wrong. They won 97 games last year, I believe. So they let another star walk out the door this year, so we'll see where Steve and I are this time around. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I know we haven't told each other much about our predictions, but you did say the amount of playoff teams you had coming out of this division, and I said mine's definitely different. So it'll be interesting to see where we differ here. And just to give our listeners a heads up, if you listened to our AL West and NL West episodes, Steve and I are going to go through this slightly differently, mostly the same, but we decided to assign teams to one another, where I will take the lead on 3 of the teams. He'll take the lead on 2, and it'll be the opposite in the AL West episode that we'll be recording very soon as well. And obviously the other person will chime in, but we think it might be able to go through it a little faster. But for the most part, the format is the same.
And for sure, taking care of some housekeeping here. Make sure you guys follow us at Tablesetters Pod on IG and on X, and also give us a follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube at Tablesetters Baseball. If you like what we're doing over here, please leave a 5-star review. It goes a very long way. So, Devin, without further ado, let's head into the meat of the order and talk about the NL Central.
We have the meat.
So I know you wanted to lead with this team here. They're not a team that won the division last year, but they're always a sexy team in the preseason. There's a shine to this team when we get going.
Yeah, the Chicago Cubs, I think a lot of people thought they'd win the division last year, and for months it seemed like they were on track to do that. And then the Brewers just stayed hot in their tail, got insanely hot at one point in the season, and the Cubs could never quite catch back up. Obviously, the two of them met in the playoffs as well. So I think most people are coming into this season thinking it's between those two. I think there's some other teams that might have a say, but I'm very high on this Chicago Cubs team for a few different reasons. The first thing I look at is the lineup. I really, really like the lineup. It's balanced, and it balanced in a lot of different ways. There's veterans in there. There's some nice additions of youth in there as well. Some speed, power, some old school, just good hitters like a Nico Horners of the world. So you have guys that can do a little bit of everything in there. I really, really enjoy the mix. I think all eyes on PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, who will be representing our United States of America tomorrow night in the WBC championship game. He's looked pretty good. I feel like he's had some moments there, popped some home runs. Doesn't seem to be starstruck in that dugout with who he's rubbing shoulders with. Seems to fit in. He's out to prove that last year's first half of 2025 was not a fluke. He was unbelievable in the first half of last year. Second half, I don't want to say it came crashing down, but looked much more human. It's funny because we talked to Cole Wright, the Cubs pregame, postgame host before the season last year, and we asked him the question, like, PCA is such a great defender. What does he have to do on offense to be like valuable? And Cole's answer was like, just like put the ball and play it more. We had no idea. I don't think anyone had any idea that he was going to go off and pop 30 home runs and make it look easy. But it's a whole new ball game with him. He's seen in a completely different light than he was at this time last year. And I don't know if we're calling him superstar yet, but if he can kind of repeat some of those streaks last year, I think that word might fit for Pete Crow Armstrong. So obviously he is one of the straws here that's going to stir the drink for the Chicago Cubs. Matt Shaw kind of got relegated with the Bregman signing in a way, but honestly, I love the possibilities for him in like a super utility role. I'm very bullish on Matt Shaw in that role, kind of more so in that role than, firm starter at third base every single day. He's hitting 333 in the spring, stolen 6 bases. So I'd like to see him run, add more of that speed factor into the Cubs kind of bag of tools there. On the pitching side, they are deep. I'm not sure, and some people might disagree with this, I'm still not sure they have a true number one ace type that can go head to head with the best of the best. And I think people might push back and say, hey, Matthew Boyd looked like an ace at points. Cade Horton was one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the second half, depending on what numbers you're looking at. Shohei Minaga has been the ace before, but we can't forget his terrible, terrible second half. You can go down the list. Justin Steele is going to come back. He's been an ace, but we got to see it first. I love their depth. I feel like they're full of number 2s and 3s, which is not a bad thing. Like if someone takes that as an insult, I do not think it is. Shota Imanaga has looked a little better in spring training. The velocity is back up a bit, which is a good thing. Still has a bit of a home run problem. Last time I looked, he's given up 4 home runs and 8 1/3. So something to keep an eye on. The home run was a enormous bugaboo in the second half of the season last year. So you have to keep an eye on that. But overall, the pitching staff, especially with what I kind of just said in passing, like if you look at roster resource right now, they have Boyd, Horton, Imanaga, Cabrera, who is, obviously a new acquisition, traded their number 1 prospect, Owen Casey, over to Miami, and then Jameson Taillon rounding it out. And that's not factoring in Justin Steele. And they have other depth as well. Jordan Wicks, okay, Ben Brown. Like you have guys that eventually will be able to chip in when they need to. So I think they're really good in a really good situation lineup wise. I think they're in a really good situation starting rotation wise and depth wise there. The bullpen I think should be just fine. Last year, very interesting. We saw it go from a huge weakness in 2024 to pretty much a strength in 2025. The bench is one thing that I look at if I'm really trying to poke holes. We had a Tyler Austin injury. I liked that signing, bringing him over from NPB. He really tore it up there. But there is a little bit of a hole on the bench there. I saw some people tweeting out, like, let's go sign Wilmer Flores or something to, like, he'll fill Tyler Austin's spot while he's gone. But maybe if I'm poking holes like the bench, I'm not super excited about, but I that's really kind of reaching, if I'm being honest. Prospect wise, they still have exciting prospect options, even with Casey gone, which means not only could those guys contribute at some point, but they also have some more bullets in the chamber at the deadline if they need to go get more. Maybe they do say, you know what, let's go for it. Let's get that true ace. Who knows? It's a long ways away, but I'll let you touch upon anything I said that might stand out to you, and then I'll give you my over-under and my X factor before we go to your first team.
Yeah, some of the things that stand out for me, of course, are the question marks for the injury to Seiya Suzuki that we saw in the WBC. Yeah. We got some troubling news today that he's getting an MRI. So as of 5 hours ago, that's not the thing you want. And that is the downside of the WBC. A lot of people will point to that and they'll say that's why our guys shouldn't play. And again, that's up for debate when you talk about how much it means to everybody for Seiya Suzuki to get hurt. That there's a risk reward that goes in. There's no doubt about it. As far as the pitching staff goes, I think, for me, and again, I'm not giving my X factor here, but if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Cade Horton, because he's projected right now to be a part of the rotation. You mentioned the names that are in there. I think he needs to develop into taking the next step for next year and go into this season and really be able to be the ace. You mentioned them not having an ace. Is it going to be Eber Cabrera? Is it going to be Shota? I think it could be Cade Horton if you actually look at the way he's been developing. And if that goes right, you add into the depth of, as you mentioned before, there's some things to like. The home runs are an issue, but there's a discrepancy between the pitching staff. It's interesting because the Cubs ranked first in whip and first in walk per 9 last year, which is, again, helps you when you're giving up the long ball. You're not doing it with guys on base. But despite all those strong control numbers, they ranked 27th in K per 9 among starting pitchers. So there's a huge divide where they're not walking guys, but they're also not striking guys out.
And that's interesting with the Horton discussion too, because I think there would be Cubs fans that would try to tell me, like, no, Cade Horton is going to turn into our ace. It depends on what you think of as an ace. Like, does an ace have to be like a Garrett Crochet, Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens type of guy that's going to strike out double digits, a bunch of times a season? Or is it okay if it's Cade Horton? Cade Horton, I believe, had the best ERA, at least in the National League, maybe of any starting pitcher in the league, in the second half last year. But he doesn't maybe get the attention or the eyes on him, even though he's playing in a big market, because he's not that strikeout guy. It's just not his thing. Maybe he can add a little bit of that, but like, that's the question. Do you need to be a strikeout guy to be an ace? I don't think necessarily. I think it's about the runs you're letting up. I think it's about the innings you're pitching. Like, are you that bulldog that can go out there and make 30, 31, 32, 33 starts and get to at least 180 innings a year? If you can do that and your ERA is between 2 and 3.25, like, I think you could definitely be an ace, especially on a contending team. I just need to see, we saw that second half. I need to see a full season of it from Cade Horton. And I'm not worried about the strikeouts personally. I just want to see what he does in the full season. But I certainly think he could fill that role. And the Shota thing, he's my X factor, Shota Imanaga, because, there was a little bit of toying with each other, right? Qualifying, opting out, qualifying offer. Oh, no, I'm going to come back. Just kidding. They looked like they were headed for a separation, but Shota didn't have much of a leg to stand on with how bad he was for much of the season last year. I mean, again, good to see some of the velocity back, but the fact that the home runs are still coming kind of takes that positivity away and makes you a little scared that that's not the only thing he needs to fix. I think he's a huge piece here, because if Shota Imanaga is the guy we saw in 2024, and you add that to a blossoming Cade Horton and an Edward Cabrera that you brought in, and Matthew Boyd, who proved himself last year, then you got to be excited. Like this rotation could really carry this team. But Shota Imanaga is my X factor. The over-under is set at 89.5 wins. I will go over on that number.
I'm going over it as well. And I know you touched on it before, but want to put some love on PCA's United States teammate, Alex Bregman, as well. Like, there's a lot to be said about him being in this ballpark as well. And you talking about him in a big way. And looking at, and we could dive deep and just talk about the Cubs and all their numbers, but I think with Cade Horton, the benefit of what we saw last year is pitching to contact, and they have the second best defense as far as defensive runs saved in MLB last year. And Bregman's defense is going to only help that get better. So you're right. Maybe the strikeouts don't need to come, and we're assessing teams and players and pitchers in these like sexy stats, but maybe it's just about getting outs. And that's what the Cubs do. They're able to make the plays.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're going to head over to their main like arch rival, right? They took the coach away from this squad a few years back, and we'll go over to Milwaukee again. They continue to let people walk out, but give me your biggest thoughts here on the Milwaukee Brewers heading into 2026.
Yeah, so I want to go back and listen to the NL Central preview last year, because I'm sure we did the same thing where we're doubting them. There's all this situation with the Brewers where they lose somebody and it's next man up, and the next guy who steps in their place is sometimes better than they left it. And you mentioned the magical year they had last year. I think that plays a part, but really what has stood out for me with the Brewers is that they've created an identity, and a lot of teams are searching for this over the past decade. There's the defense, the deep pitching development, and a lineup that has really been built around the contact, the speed, and versatility. They do all these things well. And the offense begins for me with Jackson Chourio. He's still only 22 years old. He established himself as one of the more dynamic players in all of baseball. Back-to-back years of 20 home runs, 20 steals, averaging 3 WAR per year. And then look at the rest of the lineup. William Contreras, middle of the order offense with a premium position. Catcher is a huge spot here to get all the production from there. Another guy I'm looking at is Christian Yelich. He's now operating primarily as the DH for them, by all accounts, and roster resource. He's a guy who brings a veteran presence, and he's a key offensive guy. And when he's healthy, and I guess there's a big question mark if he's healthy, Yelich is a guy who you could be there. I mean, he had the back issue again, but he still had an 800 OPS, led the team with 29 home runs. So he's a guy that when he's on the field, he's productive. And I think really the biggest story from Milwaukee and why they were able to do what they did last year is putting a lot of emphasis on the supporting cast. And for them, you got Bryce Terang, who's in all the sexy picks of these fantasy baseball pundits. We're watching him in Team USA doing what he's doing. His defensive ability makes him one of the more valuable second basemen just outside of fantasy baseball, just watching him as a second baseman in the league. Joey Ortiz, we already talked about him. He had some stability in the infield. I think this whole team is built in their identity, and that it's true to this year again, where I'm going to sit here and doubt them that they're going to be able to do what they do, not to bury the lead on who's my NL Central winner. But again, there's something admirable about building a team in the image of where you want it to be. They're not stepping out of the box, and they're always able to do it. My concern for them is they have several areas of uncertainty. They had a lot of uncertainty last year, and they went on to win 97 games, as you mentioned. But the rotation is a problem. I mean, they lack a clear frontline ace beyond Brandon Woodruff. I mean, you can look at Mizorowski, look at Brandon Sproat. I mean, there's a considerable upside from some of these arms, but they also bring volatility. That's what comes with young arms. Several members of the rotation are still adjusting to the major league level. There's durability questions that could emerge over the course of a full season. We watched Jacob Mizorowski being on an innings limit. The same is probably going to be said about Brandon Sproat this year. Same about Jacob Mizorowski. And also, I mentioned some of the versatility for the offense. They have some offensive limitations, though. They ranked among the league leaders in batting average and run scores last year, but they finished near the bottom of baseball in home runs. I think that eventually catches up to you. Much of their offense is driven by the contact and speed, situational hitting, and by the law of averages. That eventually it catches up to you because it does create stretches where it becomes inconsistent. I don't know how to measure that, but eventually it has to break the other way where everything's not going to fall in place for you. And for me, I look at the outfield. I already mentioned Jackson Chourio, but Sal Frelick is another guy appeared to lock into everyday roles. The third outfield spot is going to be a rotation between, by my account, you got Brendan Lockridge, Garrett Mitchell, and Blake Perkins, which they're defensive first players. So you're going to be talking about an offense heavy team that is looking for the power elsewhere, and they're certainly not going to get it from the outfield outside of Jackson Chourio. And those are my question marks for them. But again, when you're doubting them, and I'm sure there's some people out there that are Brewers fans, keep doubting us. That's exactly what we were fueled on. And I don't know how to measure that in advanced statistics and some level of actual certainty and logic, but it's hard for me to imagine when you compare this roster next to the Chicago Cubs that they're better than them. And I know they're the defending champions. They deserve respect. But when you look at both these teams side by side, I can't imagine a world where the Cubs just don't get the better of them. I can't see it.
I'm with you, dude. But I'm trying to also learn from last year. And again, I'm not going to spoil. We'll give our standings and how many playoff teams and who wins division at the end of the episode. But I mean, a lot of what you said makes a lot of sense to me. On paper, the Cubs certainly seem better, and there do seem to be way more questions from the Brewers than there are in Chicago right now. And specifically, the outfield is interesting that you brought that up because a roster resource right now has Garrett Mitchell. Garrett Mitchell is one of those dudes that every time in spring training or if he's out there in the beginning of the season, you watch this guy and you drool a little bit oh, man, this guy could be a star. And then he's just gone for many months at a time. This seemingly happens every year. So I'm not getting fooled by him yet. Another guy that could factor in here is one of the guys they acquired in the Freddie Peralta deal, and that's Jet Williams. Jet Williams has played extremely well in spring training for the Brewers. So there's a question as to, will he start at the major league level? He has not played a major league regular season game yet, as far as when he was with the Mets. So if he opened up with the team, it would be his first. This guy is a typical Brewer, fits in the mold. I know people joke about the Orioles having a type, right? They all look the same, kind of look I don't know, golf, private golf club kind of members, right? I feel like the Brewers just have these shorter, gritty dudes with some speed. Jet Williams is that dude. So he fits the mold. I think when I think of the Brewers, they kind of surprised me. They won 97 games. And then obviously the Dodgers kind of embarrassed them. The Brewers went real cold at the wrong time. They got embarrassed. But they went out there and got rid of a couple guys that I didn't expect. Freddie Peralta thing, obviously they could use him, but I wasn't surprised because even though he was only being paid $8 million this year, they knew they couldn't sign him. And this is the Brewers' MO. They do it with these guys. They get rid of him in their last year to try to acquire something back. And they did well. They got Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams, who will play into their future. But that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Caleb Durbin, who honestly just weeks ago was traded to Boston. He seemed to fit the Brewers mold perfectly. And Isaac Collins, man. Isaac Collins is another guy, really good defender in the corner outfield, gets great jumps. Kind of, if you follow the Warmonger and he gives you the 5-star catches, the 4-star catches, all that great information that you can find on Baseball Savant, but he always seems to have first. Isaac Collins was a darling for that kind of information. He was making great plays seemingly every night, and I think hit better than they expected to. He's over in Kansas City now, which we'll talk about in the AL West episode. AL Central, but yeah, the outfield is something to watch. They did surprise me in some facets. Luis Rengifo was brought over very quietly. So we'll see what he brings, maybe some speed over there as well. But it's just the pitching to me is more so what concerns me. And I think that's what you said as well, where I don't know, man, you're Brandon Woodruff, who has not pitched a full season in 2 or 3 years, is your ace. Jacob Mizorowski, I know he looks unbelievable at times, but let's see what the full season looks like. And then you go down the list, Chad Patrick. Everyone kind of was shocked how well he did last year. Kyle Harrison has been that fringe type of pitcher for years now, despite, no matter which team he's pitching for, whether it be the Giants, The Red Sox are now the Brewers. And then Brandon Sproat, I don't know. I think Logan Henderson certainly is going to factor in as well. But the Brewers for the last couple of years, they just churn out pitchers. Oh, this guy goes down. Let's just call this guy up. Quinn Priester, yeah.
He's out with an injury with the thoracic outlet syndrome in his wrist last year. He's going to start on the IL, but that's another guy, again, question marks upon question marks. So for the Woodruff piece, like, again, as you mentioned, when he's right, you love it. And we're watching actually appropriate. Aaron Nola is going pitching for Team Italy and pitching well, but is that going to carry over to the season? It's a matter of being able to see it. And I mean, ultimately for them, look, health is going to play a big role in this team. We mentioned Yelich, we mentioned all these guys. I think Jackson Trio, he has to be my X factor. You're looking for a superstar player that's going to take the mantle and be the guy. He could determine the ceiling of this team and their offense. And he needs to make improvements with plate discipline. He needs to figure out base running a little bit better. And I think it could transform him from a very good player into a true MVP candidate. And I think most people are looking at him with his skill set being very exciting. He's probably in the same bucket of a lot of players that need to take the next step. And he absolutely could make that leap. He could turn those 2020 season into a 30-30 campaign. There's no doubt about it. I think he has the skill set to do it. And if he could, all of a sudden you're putting this lineup together around him and you feel a lot better about the offense and where it's at. But right now, if he's the player he was last year, getting 20 bombs, where else are you getting the power from?
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll see what Andrew Vaughn, that was another crazy story last year. They kind of get him off the scrap heap in the Savali deal. And when Savali basically said he wanted out and gets traded to the White Sox, and Andrew Vaughn comes out here and has a complete rebirth, such a Brewer thing in the last 5 years that they can do that to these guys.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying about the pitching, the contact, and being able, not really having the power to sustain a rally when you guys are getting cold, because as we know, watching baseball, you can make the case on both sides that this is a slump-proof team. That's what they showed last year because they're able to churn these hits together. But when you don't have a big bat in the lineup, and they do, like I said, Yelich when he's healthy hit 29 bombs last year. Jackson Trio could hit 30 bombs. But when you don't have that reliable source of power that's going to hit like a Pete Alonso, he's going to get close to 40 bombs every year. You start to question where it's coming from, and everything that could have went right last year went right. And you start to ask the question of how could everything go right again? And you mentioned all the stuff that went in their favor. I don't know. The law of averages, there's something to that.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the guy I'm most excited about this year from a statistic standpoint is William Contreras. He, listen, 2024, I feel like he was the star catcher. And then last year, obviously, Cal Raleigh goes crazy. And there's some other young guys that people get excited about. Drake Baldwin, Shea Langoliers, some guys kind of outshined him, and William Contreras was not bad in the first half, but he was kind of quiet compared to what he did in 2024. Look at his second half of the year stats, though, and some of the hard hit rates, and he looked ready to tear it up, and I think he's going to get off to a quicker start this year. And then the bullpen we didn't really mention. I love the bullpen. They added Zerpa in that Isaac Collins deal. It could be nasty. He actually just got a big out for Venezuela 5 minutes ago on the mound. So there's a lot to like, and they play Brewer baseball, man. But the Vegas agrees with us as far as on paper. The over-under is 84.5. So where are you going on the over-under?
I'm going over, but I don't have them as a playoff team. And I know, and I think that's probably saying a lot. I have them.
I thought you were going the other way. Before when you said, I thought you were going the other way. Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting.
I think there's going to be, and we didn't cover some of the teams I think are going to be playoff teams. If you guys, on the NL side of things, I have the Dodgers and the D-backs in the playoffs. And that means that we have six playoff teams. So I have 4 spots to fill out. I have 1 here, which means that 3 are coming from the National League East. So we'll see how this shapes out. But I think this is going to be a fun year. It's going to be a reason to come out to the ballpark and watch this team. And I'm not trying to dissuade people from getting behind your team, because this is a team that really was bonded by the adversity last year of anyone saying that they couldn't win games and all that. And listen, use this as motivation again. My voice out there, I'm sure there's a lot of people saying that 84.5 is disrespectful to a 97 win team for them. That's poster mentality, putting in the dugout and say that you guys are disrespecting us. And it's hard, again, to look at this team and expect them to be able to compete with what the Cubs did this offseason.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to look at the standings at the end here. But let's head over to Cincinnati here. Again, you mentioned it at the top of the episode, I believe. The Reds were a playoff team in 2025. And, didn't fare too well against the Dodgers, but who did? So here are some thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts on the Cincinnati Reds, but the offense looks improved. I mean, Eugenio Suarez brought in. Love the move. Love it. Obviously, he's familiar with Cincinnati, familiar with the ballpark. I think he could have an absolute monster year at Great American Ballpark. I mean, it's a great hitting ballpark for everybody, but a guy who knows how to play there as well. I think he has a home run in this game as well for Venezuela, the only run on the board. I think he's going to have a big year. And I was saying for such a long time, they need that big bopper bat to help out Ellie. I wanted to be Schwarber. Didn't happen. Eugenio, it's a solid move. Matt McClain has been maybe the story of spring training. And man, are Cincinnati fans hoping this is real. Because when Matt McClain first came up before the big injury, he was like, oh my God, like, who is this kid? He was just tearing it up. And then, the injury takes him a long time to get back. Last year, just to be honest, in a lot of metrics, one of the worst players in the league. But he may have found it again. Best spring of anyone. 553 is what he's hitting. 6 home runs, a 1710 OPS. If he's really back, it could change everything for this team. Sal Stewart is another legitimate middle of the bat lineup. I don't think he's like a 30, 35 home run guy, but I think he's like a 20 home run and a bunch of doubles guy, line drive guy, natural hitter. I'm excited about him as well. He's looked good in spring also, 355, 2 doubles, 2 home runs. So like you put those 3 guys in the mix that weren't really in the mix for the full season last year. Eugenio Suarez, a rejuvenated Matt McClain. I know Matt McClain was there last year, but was this Matt McClain there last year? I don't think so. Sal Stewart was only there for basically a cup of coffee towards the end of the year. That's a lot of potential offense you are adding to the squad that was not there for most of the season. I also don't think we've ever truly seen Noelvi Marte's ceiling for multiple reasons, whether it be a PED suspension or some nagging injuries. He's moved positions as well. Like, I think he could come out and surprise people with how good he actually is. And then there's the guy, like, we're burying the lead. Ellie De La Cruz is the superstar in Cincinnati. Still searching a little bit for the balance between, all right, how much do I need to cut down on strikeouts? But I don't want to focus too much on that because now I'm hitting the ball on the ground too much and not hitting enough home runs. He's still searching for that balance. But I do think there's a world in which we maybe haven't seen anything even close to his ceiling. I still think we're trying to figure that out. So the potential of this offense is exciting, in my opinion. You also have lots of fun role players. They brought in a guy like Dane Myers, who's going to put some highlight catches on tape. Will Benson has been there. He's looking really good in spring. As far as like this is not my X factor, but he kind of falls in that category. Terry Francona, obviously long career, knows how to get the best out of talent. So it makes me excited about the Reds when he's the guy on the bench. Here's where I pump the brakes. And the standings, when I give my prediction later, I just said a bunch of good things about them that I'm excited about. And then later, the standings might not match that. This is the reason why. The Hunter Green injury is, to me, enormous. He's your true ace. Apparently expects to be back in July. But what that injury does is it puts pressure on everyone else while they wait for him. Right? Lauder and Burns, young guys. Rhett Lauder is finally getting back up and getting his chance. We just got news today that apparently Chase Burns is not going to start with the big league club coming out of the gate. Something along the lines of something his arm motion they don't like is what I read. So they might be tinkering with some stuff. I was very surprised to hear this because all the talk before that was like, oh my God, like imagine facing this kid. This kid's going to be unbelievable. And now we hear this. We'll see. But Rhett Lauder, it's really his first experience if he's out of the gate with them, like pitching in the big leagues for a consistent long amount of time. Nick Lodolo took a step forward, a step toward being that reliable guy last year. He made 28 starts, still only 156 innings pitched. I want to see that number go up, but definitely a step in the right direction. And then the other piece of the puzzle in the pitching staff is your opening day starter, Andrew Abbott. He's been hit really hard in spring. And I've seen a lot of talk, and like there's some truth behind it, of like he's had some really great numbers over the last few years, But like, there are people that are just not convinced, because if you peel the onion back a little bit, some of the metrics show some concerning things that make you think, like, when are the wheels going to start to fall off a little bit? He has a 9.82 ERA in spring. Batters are hitting 340 against him. I know, especially with pitchers' numbers, you should take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of these guys are tinkering with stuff. But it's something to watch. The pitching concerns me, and then what the depth is behind it. I know Ben Williamson apparently will be the number 5 starter now that Burns is not going to start with the team, but they're going to need to hold down the fort and keep the ship above water until Hunter Green gets back. And when these guys go out with injuries like this, you just don't know when they come back. Are they going to be the best versions of themselves? So the pitching has me concerned, which is like a complete 180 for me, because previous to this, I was saying how much I love the Reds pitching, and just put a nice lineup together and you have a really good shot. Over under is set at 80.5, which I think is appropriate. I'm going under here, and it's strictly because of the pitching questions and scenarios that I'm a little worried about. My X factor is Nick Lodolo. Needs to be that 30-game starter. Made 28 last year. Needs to be that 180 or more innings guy. We see how nasty he can be. I believe he had a complete game last year. He can be great. I just want to see the consistency and the longevity through a season, especially with Hunter Green out. So I don't know what you have any thoughts on any of those points I made there, or maybe something I didn't say, but the Reds are an interesting team. There's a lot of different ways you could go, honestly.
I completely agree with a lot of what you said about the rotation, which was a strength going into the season, and now it becomes a question mark, and that changes the face of this whole team. And there's different responsibilities going in as the opening day starter for Andrew Abbott. And can these guys take the next step? I do like Rhett Lauder. I do also like Brady Singer providing durability in the middle of the rotation for them. But again, without Hunter Green, you don't have that anchor. And for me, really, the bullpen is an obvious concern. Emilio Pagan is expected to handle the closing duties, but the depth behind him is pretty volatile. Last year, they struggled with consistency, which, again, they made the playoffs. But, again, this is a team that wanted to improve that. They were near the middle of the league in most pitching categories with dealing with control issues. That's probably going to be an issue again this year. And then defensively, they're ranked near the bottom of the league in several fielding metrics. So that's a problem as well that wasn't really addressed. There are some players on there that defense might be something they've been working on, but the athleticism of Ellie and TJ Friedel does mitigate some of those issues, but it was an issue and they need to improve the defense. And then really the lack of power. And we've been talking about it endlessly on here. Ellie wasn't able to have the power. He had the power outage in the middle of last year. Can they get power from Ellie and then be able to get it from Suarez and be able to put it all together? Can Sal Stewart and Matt McClellan, can we have the power in this lineup and do what we think they can do? So it remains to be seen, because I think everyone has the potential, but they haven't quite all clicked at the same time.
Are you buying this Matt McClain spring? 553, 6 home runs. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but like, are you buying that he's back? Like, this guy has that ability to be a middle of the order bat, and what he's showing is like legit changes. Are you buying it, or are you completely skeptical?
I'm 100% skeptical on it. I mean, there is a shot. I wouldn't be shocked if he put it all together, because I think we've all seen the skill set, especially against big league pitching in that ballpark. We love playing there as his home ballpark. My biggest thing is I want to see Ellie do it. I want to see Ellie hit 40 bombs. Of course. That's what I want to see. And I think he has the potential to do it. It's just like, why not? And I think everyone else around him, he's the go guy for them. And if he goes and has a monster year, sky's the limit. And then you mentioned Suarez. Can he capitalize on what's been a fun WBC for him? Maybe not the best trade acquisition when he went over, start over. And this is he's been here. It feels like home for him. So I think there's some good vibes for Suarez coming back. And his offense could be fun, but it might be in the same vein of where we were 10 years ago when he was here and they were all hitting bombs, but they had no pitching and no defense.
True. Again, like, it's like, if everything goes well and everyone stays healthy, it's the ifs, right? Like, they do have a pretty decent ceiling, in my opinion, but there's just a few things that scare me that I need to see first before I really buy into them. But let's head over to my favorite city, one of my, the team that I really just love to cheer on, right? The St. Louis Cardinals. Give me your thoughts on these guys this year.
So clearly the Cards are in a transitional phase every time you discuss anything about the St. Louis Cardinals. But to me, I think we'll talk some about the positives because there are structural elements that give this roster a pathway to be competitive in the National League Central. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I think they could surprise some teams as far as being able to compete and maybe follow the formula that the Milwaukee Brewers did last year, because run prevention remains a core organizational identity that they've identified as something they want to do well. The strong infield defense, contact oriented, and a rotation designed to keep the team in games rather than have really the ace or be able to overwhelm opponents. And looking at their up the middle defense, they might be the most athletic defensive combinations league. Mason Wynn established himself as maybe one of the most dynamic defensive shortstops. And if he's able to put it together offensively, you got to have a very special player here. He has elite range. You look at one of the strongest arms at the position, and JJ Weatherholt is another guy. You're expecting him to add another layer to this team, could just inject a whole bunch of enthusiasm. And who knows? I mean, you could have exceptional coverage in the middle infield with both those guys there. Nolan Gorman, he's be the primary power threat, quote unquote, in this infield. You know, Alec Burleson, I mean, maybe he's going to be stable at first base for them. There's a lot of question marks. And on the mound, I think the broader philosophy of mixing maybe some controllable arms. Matthew Liberatore is expected to take the ball on opening day. That kind of tells you what you're looking at for this team going into this year. Dustin May arrives as looking at for some upside from him. Andre Palante and Michael McGreevy, these are the names you're looking at. But again, I mean, St. Louis media, I dug deep into the athletic articles and the coverage of them. There's some excitement, not because they're going to be competitive this year, but watching players take the next step and identifying who this team would be. I think the biggest criticism you and I had during this year and last year, where they were just floating around. They were floating around trying to figure out who they would be. And if you look at this, the way this team is constructed, for several years, I mean, if you go back and look at the awards for this team, the last Cardinals outfielder to win a Silver Slugger was Matt Holliday in 2010, which, I mean, again, their outfield production is ranked in the bottom half of baseball since 2021. The outfield is an issue. It will be an issue again this year. Lars Nootbaar begins the year on the IL. He had heel surgery. So Nelson Velasquez has created a little bit of buzz in spring training. You mentioned Matt McClain going off, but Velasquez doing that, hitting multiple home runs. And his roster situation is complicated because, again, 40-man considerations. Are they going to bring him up there? And then center field is Victor Scott. He's a speedy guy, defense first kind of thing. He did steal 34 bases last year, but he has to get on base. And then right field presents maybe the most important developing storyline, which I'll bake into my X Factor. It's Jordan Walker. We talk about him as a prospect, highly regarded. Everyone expects the world of him, but his transition, to put it lightly, has been very uneven. And he finished last among qualified right fielders in both OPS and FWAR last year. And while St. Louis and everyone behind him still believes that his upside's there, you have to imagine this is the year you get offensive improvement from him, or you don't get it at all, because this is the year. But again, you can look at the optimist side of things. He's 23 years old. I understand everyone's impatient. He's been here for a little bit, but the raw power and the physical profile of this guy, like, he is a guy that, how do you not, I mean, again, you see it's almost like every time spring comes out, you look at it and you just see him on the field, like he's got to put it together this year, right, guys? But I mean, you can pinpoint a lot of people with the metrics are looking at the launch angle. He hasn't been able to handle breaking pitching. That is out on him. Everybody knows that he can't hit it right now. And figure out how to play right field in real time. So he's adjusting to the new position and looking at some of the projections. You look at Zips, whatever one you want to use, there's some modest production increase. I don't like it though. 14 home runs. Like, again, if that's the year you're getting from him, maybe set him out to sell and send him somewhere else, because I'm not saying give up on the guy, but if the projection is 14 home runs, batting .232 with an 88 WRC plus, that's not the ceiling on a player like that. He needs to translate all his raw power into it, or the Cardinals are going nowhere. And let's be honest, they're going nowhere this year anyway, but he's a guy 23 years old. He's supposed to be a centerpiece around them. JJ Weatherholt is going to be like the deodorant for this team. It's going to make you feel good about watching them when he's on the field. But I would like to see more from Jordan Walker at 23 years old.
Yeah. Jordan Walker, I believe, went to Driveline this offseason, so that's the newest thing. Is that going to unlock him? Who knows? But yeah, JJ Weatherholt's the guy to watch here. Like, don't be surprised if you look up in October and he's the rookie of the year instead of Nolan McLean or Connor Griffin or some of these other guys that people keep on talking about. Pitching wise, I mean, it's an ugly pitching staff. Liberatore, May, Palante, McGreevy, Lee. I can never say that name, but McGreevy, I think, is the guy that I actually like McGreevy. I watched him a few starts last year. I think he has it. He's kind of a guy who have one fantastic start, and then you start to get excited, and he doesn't do much the next time. But I think he's a guy who could put it together and be, right now listed as number 4 starter. I think he might be better than that. But the good thing about the Cardinals is that I think you're going to start to see their names like on the prospect list come up. They've made a lot of moves, obviously, sending guys off, sending guys away, whether it be Sonny Gray or Brendan Donovan. They've acquired some pretty solid pieces, and they're hoping that at least some of them work out. The problem is if I'm a Cardinal fan, and I know kind of new management taking over, right, as far as like front office, but problem is like they've had high prospects before. You just talked about them. Jordan Walker at one point was what, like the number 3 overall prospect? He might have even got to number 2 or number 1. I don't remember, but I know I remember seeing his name in the top 5 for sure. And he just hasn't turned out. Nolan Gorman's another guy who hasn't turned out. He's all or nothing. He's either a home run or strikes out a million times. So they haven't been able to develop this apparently premier talent that have been ranked so high. So that would be my concern. Can we develop these new guys that are going to be great? I think Weatherholt is going to be I think he could be great in spite of them, to be honest. Like, I just feel like he's that kind of player. I'm not saying they're developing him wrong by any means, but like, I feel like he could overcome. I just think he's that good. He's can do everything. So I'm excited about him. But Mason Wynn, another guy, I'll say, like, he does everything right, plays the game hard, a hell of a defender, ridiculous arm. And offensively, which is definitely the harder part of the game for him, little incremental improvements. And I do feel like he's that guy, that hard worker, that you're going to see those little improvements every single year. So you got to give a shout out to him. He is one guy who I feel like has been doing it right in St. Louis. But overall, yeah, it's a development year, and let's see what we got and keep on going forward.
Yeah, so putting the bow on them, I think really with Chaim Bloom and the front office over there and management, coaching, the balance of this year is remaining competitive in an open NL Central, giving people a reason to come out to the ballpark on a daily basis, but also shaping the future of this franchise with the identity. We talked about the Brewers having a blueprint of who they are. For the longest time in the post-Yachty, Pujols years, the Cardinals didn't have an idea of who they are, who they're going to be. I think they're finally on that right now. They're trying to figure out defense first and contact. And if you identify your central point, use the blueprint of another fellow team in Missouri with Bobby Witt Jr. You got your guy. If J.J. Weatherholt, and that's a high hope to be Bobby Witt Jr., but if you get your guy, the rest kind of builds out from it. And the problem with, as you mentioned before, with the Cardinals, there's been a lot of disappointing prospects that have not emerged from the cocoon into anything. And they're trying their best to figure it out and putting some pressure on them. And that's why this all turned into a full teardown, because these guys, because they were trying to build it back on the fly. If you remember, they weren't trying to tear this apart. They wanted to keep it going while being competitive, because it wasn't that long ago that the Cardinals were the class of the National League where they were doing things the right way. And it all fell apart because whether it's player development or drafting or misguiding or any of that, it just didn't work out. Now that it fully tear it down, hopefully it works out with the new crop of guys they have.
Yeah, well, that transitions into our next team, the last one, the NL Central, that has seemingly been able to develop some of their prospects and are continuing to, and that's the Pittsburgh Pirates here, the last team we're going to talk about before we give our prediction standings. So I'll take us through the Pirates a little bit here. I think the first thing I look at is everyone's super excited about the pitching, as they should be. They got a bunch of electric arms in there, right? Led by Paul Skeens, of course. I don't know if he's gotten the Captain America name yet, but he's America's pitcher, I've heard, I guess. He's as good as anybody. We don't have to talk much about him because he's that good. We know what we have in Paul Skeens. We're not kind of educating anyone in that regard. But there's other pieces. Obviously, Mitch Keller has been solid over the years now. He's back. Not a lot of talk about him right now. Bubba Chandler, I'll talk about a little bit. And then like Jared Jones is the guy that he's not going to be there on opening day, but when he does come back, what is he going to look like? Because, I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago we saw him burst onto the scene and felt like he was getting, swords, that stat where you just basically turn a batter into, I don't know, like paper mache, basically. He was just lighting up the league before he got hurt. Can he come back and look like that? But Bubba Chandler is the guy I'm focused on. I'd say the most right now. He's been a mixed bag in spring training. 34.7% K rate, excellent. But he also has a 17.3% walk rate, and the ERA sits at 6.55. So, like, if you just watch a couple of highlights of the guy, you could be fooled into thinking he's dominant in spring. He hasn't been. Some starts have been better than others, but overall, he's been super, super inconsistent. And again, could be toying with stuff, obviously. But as a younger pitcher who hasn't really established himself at the big league level yet, I don't know how much tinkering there is with a guy like that. I would think you'd want to lock in your game right now with what you're going to go into the season with. So Bubba Chandler is going to be a big piece for this team and how successful they are. And if he can be that 1-2 punch with Skeens, and then Keller can just be himself, and then Jared Jones, if he can come back and be even almost as good as he was when he first came up, I mean, you're looking at a hell of a pitching staff there. And then I think the other obvious question is just how improved is the offense? It's definitely improved. One of the worst offenses in the league last year. So it's not that hard to actually improve it a little bit. But how improved is it? The additions include Brandon Lau, Ryan O'Hearn, Marcell Ozuna, Jake Mangum. And also we have to throw in, especially because of the spring he's having, Garcia. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the first name. We'll call him the password. Okay. From Boston. They bring him over. He's hitting .517 in spring with 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases. So I don't know what their plan is for him early, but like that's another piece you could eventually add that as obviously has a lot of talent. Did get a cup of coffee with Boston last year at the big league level. So it's not crazy to think that he will contribute at the big league level at some point. The thing with the additions, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, is if I'm a Pittsburgh fan, I'm a little worried that, yes, the offensive improvements are really good. They're really solid. But will the potentially bad defense negate those positives? And we're talking about Brandon Lau being a really poor second baseman, if you look at the metrics at this point in his career. If Ryan O'Hearn is being asked to play the outfield instead of DHing or playing first, I don't know how much you're going to love that. And obviously, Marcell Ozuna is going to DH. So, like, O'Hearn might be asked to play the outfield there. A solid hitter, but I don't know how we're going to feel about him on defense. There's other pieces. I mean, Brian Reynolds was not a good defensive outfielder. O'Neal Cruz has had a lot of issues in the outfield as well. So there's a lot of defensive question marks there. And what a shame it would be if the offense really is dramatically improved and the pitching goes out there and is electric and the defense just kind of takes a bunch of it away. Like that would be a little bit of a shame. And I think it's a realistic possibility. And then maybe I'm burying the lead here because everyone has the name Connor Griffin on the tip of their tongue. Okay. Can he live up to the hype? Is he there on opening day? He leads the team in homers in spring training with 4, but he is hitting just 212. So like there's give and take to this. Do we think he's ready because he's hit the 4 home runs or is there still some stuff he could polish in the minors for a month or 2 or maybe more? Those are the leads. I mean, it's obvious. Is the pitching as good as advertised? Just how improved is the offense? Is the defense going to undo it all? And Connor Griffin. Those are the highlights for this squad. My X factor is going to be O'Neal Cruz, though. I thought about Griffin, but I just don't know when he's going to be with the team. O'Neal Cruz is going to be there on opening day. Looked good in the WBC. He was looking good in regular spring training before he left for the WBC, hitting the ball extremely hard as he does. But can he strike out less? Can he put the ball in play? Can he play an okay center fields? I think he holds the keys, man. He has for a while, and I think this, with an improved team, he really holds the keys. The over-under is 78.5, and I am going to go over. I am playing optimist for the Pittsburgh Pirates this year.
Yeah, everything you said, I'm co-signing. They made improvements, and if they're going to improve offensively, it won't be that hard, as you mentioned. They finished near the bottom of all offensive categories in 2025. And for me, looking at them, as I mentioned, with St. Louis being in a transitional stage, so are they. They're not rebuilding, and they're not fully contending, but there's a new identity of whether they're going to be spending money, and this is a little litmus test of what this team will be. And there has to be capitalization of Paul Skeens. You mentioned what he was able to do. We're watching what he's doing in the World Baseball Classic on a big stage. he provides a legitimate competitive advantage. There's no doubt about it. Every time he takes the bump, you should be winning those games. And the strong wave of prospects approaching the major leagues. You mentioned Connor Griffin, but there's others behind them that they're able to find a way to get this talent in there and bridge the gap and let these additions and flirt with 500 and remain competitive in the second half of the year. That would be an improvement from what we've seen in Pittsburgh. And that might be a low bar, but that's where we're at this point. And we want a team to actually give a reason to go out to the ballpark at PNC, a beautiful ballpark at that, warm weather in Pittsburgh, go out and watch this team. And the bullpen is very uncertain as well. If you look at the depth chart here, no mistake about it. Dennis Santana projects as the closer. Gregory Soto is going to be providing some experience. And behind him, there's really no true dominant late inning presence. So if you get to the ninth inning and Paul Skeens has a lead, it's going to be walking the tightrope every single night. But they'll be at least more fun than they've been in the past. You mentioned offensively, there is an improvement. Whether the defense is worse than last year, which is a very distinct possibility, as you mentioned, with all these guys playing out of position. But offensively, there could be at least excitement where, chicks dig the long ball. So maybe we're going to get a lot of that in Pittsburgh.
He almost took that one a different place, man.
I mean, they also dig that as well, I guess. But O'Neal Cruz is going to be a very fun player to watch. And I guess another translation to the World Baseball Classic, is there a way to carry over the momentum where he looked like he was having the most fun he's ever had playing baseball in his life?
Yeah.
Can you have that transcend to Pittsburgh and bring that energy, bring that flair? And it's different from playing in this environment, the WBC, to playing an uncompetitive game, non-competitive game in April with a few thousand people in the stands. You got to motivate yourself somehow.
Yeah, and just to finish up, like you did make a good point. There is more on the way that the Pirates fans should continue to be excited about. Like Tamar Johnson's been a prospect for a while, but I still think he can put it all together and be an exciting player. Esmeralyn Valdez, a lot of people have started to get excited about. I think was killing it over in the Arizona Fall League a couple months ago. Edward Florentino is another name. Like there's names there that are not as close that are going to be exciting for Pirates fans to follow. But let's head to the finish here. So Steve alluded to it earlier. He took two teams from the NL West making the playoffs. I only took one, and that was the Dodgers. I said this year they're the only team that's going to come out of the National League West. So here's the thing, man. You might think, oh, that means Devin's going to take three teams from the East. I'm going three from the Central here.
Wow.
A little whack. I think my playoffs are a little wacky, but you gotta go a little outside the box sometimes. So I'm going Cubs are going to win the division. I do think the Brewers then come in a close second and kind of stay with them all year, just what they do. But this time the Cubs figure it out. And I have the Pirates kind of playing the Reds role from last year where they squeak in kind of at the end there. They do just enough. And man, here's the difference. Like they're scary if they squeak in, because you're going to have to face Paul Skeens and potentially some other electric arms in a very short series. And you could say the same thing about the Reds, I guess, like, facing Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. It didn't turn out. Hunter Green got beat up in LA, but like, I don't know. It'd be fun to see them make it. I definitely am playing optimist. I pushed myself. Like, as I was kind of digging through everything, I think I probably had more reasons to put the Reds as the third playoff team from this division, but I'm just playing a hunch here, and I'm going Pirates. Three teams coming out of the Central.
So I have one team. My finish is similar to yours, but not the same. I have the Cubs, the Brewers, the Reds, the Pirates, and the Cardinals pulling up the basement here. And that's not to say that we're not going to have a competitive nature for a wild card spot. I think the Brewers, the Reds, as you mentioned, the Pirates, they'll all be in flux for the dual playoff spots out there. They're going to be playing competitive baseball. I just think that there's a lot of talent elsewhere that will limit their ability to get in there. And last year, you mentioned the Reds getting in. It was good experience for them. I understand it was one game, but there's something to be said about being able to.
They played two and just got.
Well, yeah, one series, hang your hat on it and build on that. So there's something to that, and that would be a big story to watch if they can take that into this year. I do like your Pirates thing. I don't think I can get behind it completely, but things do break right. And if they do play defense and they are pitching the way they are, I mean, there's a chance that they could be out there and surprise some teams and host a playoff game.
Man, that'd be electric. I just remember, I always think Pittsburgh, I always think about, like, when I think about their playoffs, they were unfortunately making the playoffs as the wild card team during the 1-game wild card era, and got screwed with that a couple times, I believe. So in the kind of the McCutcheon MVP era.
That's the Cueto game, right? Where he drops the ball that we're talking about.
I think I think I'm a little blurry on it, but that sounds right. But
And
yeah,
PNC
so like to
Parker's
get them
rocking.
back, even if they get back as like the last wild card team, like 3-game series is certainly better than the 1 game that didn't work out for them. So we'll see. But interesting that you only have 1 team coming out of this division where we had 3 last year. Just the Cubs, right? That's all you have coming out?
Yeah, so I have 3 playoff spots remaining, which we have 1 National League division left. And the benefit of doing all my picks all at once, I was able to secure that I have 3 National League East teams coming into the playoffs with me, and yet to remain to be seen who's going to be in it. But we appreciate you guys listening to this episode. We're going to be back in just a little bit with the American League Central, so stay tuned to that. You guys can follow us at Tablesetters Pod on IG and also on X, and also give us a like and subscribe on YouTube at Tablesetters Baseball. Interact with us. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if you disagree or if Devin's crazy for picking the Pirates making the postseason. We'll see what happens. But until that time, enjoy the rest of the games. We're so close to opening day, we can taste it. We'll talk to you after a while.